What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. What is going on, everybody? Hopefully you are doing well out there in the real world. Took the weekend off. Was kind of nice. Took a nap for the first time in a long time on a Sunday. Very, very enjoyable. A nice little golf nap as Scotty Scheffler was winning by about 100. And today I thought about let's talk some football because right before I pressed record, Justin Tucker, within the last, I'm recording this in the mid-afternoon on Monday, has been cut from the Baltimore Ravens. So we will start off by discussing that. Couple other things. Washington, D.C. will host the draft. Stafford, some details came out about his contract. Sherrone Moore, the coach who replaced Jim Harbaugh, well, he's on staff, and they elevated, has been suspended by his own team for the Connor Stallion situation from a couple years ago. Then a couple other draft news and notes, or just thoughts that I want to discuss. So before we dive into Tucker, I do want to talk about my friends, my partners in the official ticketing app of this podcast. Someone just forwarded me a picture of them using the promo code John to buy some Washington Capitals tickets. I think the game is actually on Monday night, which I'm a big Washington Capitals backer to win the Stanley Cup. So congratulations to you. And if you want to go to, I said, listen, Lakers, the season was about to end. The Warriors, not so fast, my friends. So if you want to go to one of these NBA playoff games, if you're a fan of Cleveland, Indiana, New York, Boston, Minnesota, you name it. Obviously, baseball off and running. Concerts, hit the ground running. Let's go. Concert season is here. And clearly comedy shows. You want to go get a smile, a laugh. Best ticketing app I've ever used. Cannot recommend them enough. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account and use the code JOHN, J-O-H-N, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code John, that's J-O-H-N, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. I read this quote the other day about Jimmy Johnson when he was the coach of the Cowboys, and he gave an example where he caught, I think, like a practice squad guy sleeping in a meeting, and he cut the guy the next day. And I don't know if this was like a story he told after the fact, or maybe he gave this quote in a press conference over the course of the week after he cut the practice squad player. And they asked him what would he have done if Troy Aikman had been sleeping in the meeting. And he said, well, I would have woke him up and said, Troy, we're meeting. And I think that speaks, in football is not that much different than life. Certain people, especially in certain industries and certain businesses, are just going to be treated differently. And I think when you look at football specifically, there are a couple positions where the margin for error for you either being a distraction, a problem, or simply not good enough, the leash on your career or your status with that team is basically nil. Zero. Does not exist. There is no leash. You get a much longer leash when you are a great wide receiver, a great offensive tackle, a great pass rusher, obviously a great quarterback. Look at Deshaun Watson. All the shit that was going on around him when he was demanding a trade and the teams that were interested, he convinced one owner. Now, you could argue the craziest owner in the sport, but to give him $230 million, simply because everyone at the time thought he was a high-end Pro Bowl quarterback. Clearly was not the case. But even Russell Wilson, who had never been in trouble like Deshaun Watson, was like, kind of weird, team not really into him. Pete Carroll, these guys are kind of over him. And the Denver Broncos are like, what do you want? Multiple ones? A brand new contract? Russell, you're our guy. Because he's important. And he's much more important than most guys on the team. I would say the least important guys on a team in terms of the hierarchy from a coaching staff and definitely a front office are the specialists. Not that you don't need them to win. Having a good kicker and having a good punter is important. But Justin Tucker just learned a valuable lesson. He is going to go down, at least in my life, as probably the best kicker of the internet era. I use that a lot because that's kind of my high school to current, right? Basically 2000 till present. And I would say if you needed a kicker in his prime on your team, you would choose him. He was a weapon. I mean, game winning kicks from like 65 plus yards. Obviously, he was so accurate. He was incredible. And then over the course of the last 12 months, obviously, most recently, you will think of his Deshaun Watson situation. But the reason he was cut today isn't just that simple. It's because this year he had the worst year of his career, lowest percentage of makes of his career. And it felt like even before I went to his just wiki page to see the percent, when you were sitting there on the couch on Sunday, having the 4 box up on YouTube and the Ravens, he was missing a lot of big kicks. Honestly, it felt like he missed a lot more than the stat sheet said. So when I saw the headline today that the Ravens had cut Justin Tucker, it wasn't because they have any idea whether this is true or not. And honestly, maybe they do at this point. It's because he's simply not good enough to worry about his problems. Whether he's in the wrong or whether he's in the right, we don't have time to figure that out. And your position, they just drafted a kicker in the 6th round. They got no fucking kid if this kid from Arizona that they just drafted is going to be any good. We see constantly, guys, the 49ers draft a guy in the 3rd round. He cannot be trusted. He might be a bust. And Jim Harbaugh once considered him at the University of Michigan. I think it was like death, taxes, and Moody. He was that automatic. The 49ers get him, can't make a kick to save his life. So no one has any clue. Justin Tucker famously, pretty sure, undrafted free agent. And used often as an example of why, listen, kicking's pretty random. This is not like quarterbacks or pass rushers. You can find these guys on the street after the draft. But today was about like, it's just too loud. And whether you're a kicker, whether you're a punter, whether you're a long snapper, and I would also put the backup quarterback in this situation, your leash does not exist. The conversation around you is zero. The moment it gets loud and noisy, see ya. We got enough other issues and enough other problems, and winning in this league is hard enough. If we're the Ravens, we got one goal, and that's to win the AFC. Why can't we beat the Chiefs and beat the Bills? Like, that's all we're worried about. We don't have time to figure out your off the field issues as a 35-year-old kicker. And that's why they cut him today. Not because, I mean, indirectly because of this situation that he's dealing with from like a decade ago, but it's like, we don't got time to deal with that bullshit. Welcome to life. The NBA 82 game grind is done. And now the real fun begins. The NBA playoffs are here, and it's time for the high-stakes drama, clutch moments, and jaw-dropping plays. Can't wait. If you're looking to make the playoffs even more exciting, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered as an official sports betting partner of the NBA. From the play-in games all the way through the finals. Now, the time to back your favorite players and teams as they chase glory. All season long, DraftKings has been your go-to spot for NBA player props, and that doesn't stop now. Want to make your playoff experience even more intense? Try placing a bet on your favorite player's performance. Will Curry drop 30? Will LeBron drop 40 or more? It's your call. Ready to place your first bet? Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, lock in your bets, and let's make the playoff run unforgettable. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Make it a playoff run to remember with DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. You know, some franchises, I was watching the Clippers get absolutely shellacked on Saturday night by the Denver Nuggets, who just beat the living crap out of them in the second half. I mean, it was, that's as bad of a game 7 as you were going to see. And they were a franchise that, let's face it, has kind of been a joke most of my life. And while they've had good teams over the last 10 plus years, they have never lived up to the hype. And they've been one of those franchises that, like, every time the playoffs will come around, they've become a sexy pick. Like, this is the year. Every person I heard going into this playoffs picked the Clippers against the Denver Nuggets. It's like, not only can a Clippers going to beat the Denver Nuggets, they could make a run. They could win the NBA championship. Then the first round ends and they get eliminated. And it's like something about that franchise. Hell, They have, I think, based on his bank account, the richest owner in the NBA and one of the richest owners in all of professional sports. Honestly, he might be the richest. He just built somehow post the vid a new arena in Los Angeles. I mean, that is a success story in itself. That's fucking incredible to get something built in the last couple years in California of that size and in that area. Incredible accomplishment. And by all accounts, that arena's badass. And yet the Clippers are still the Clippers. Every once in a while, a franchise can go like, something about the Lions. I mean, the Lions were even a bigger joke than the Clippers, and it does feel like they have course corrected as hard in a short period of time as anything I've ever seen. There is no arguing. Like, I don't remember I mean, I would have been really, really young in the mid to late 80s and even the early 90s, the Redskins being really good. I don't remember any of that. In my life, the football team in Washington has been really bad. They've had a year here and a year there, but for the most part, they've been a joke. And it feels like in a short period of time, overnight, that it feels like pretty stable in a pretty normal organization. And honestly, a major problem if you're in that division, especially if you're not the Eagles, like the Cowboys and the Giants, who for a long period of time took advantage of this crappy franchise. And now it's like, well, they got a good coach, they got a good GM, they clearly got a young budding quarterback, and it just feels like their franchise has just stabilized. And listen, I'm not saying that the Clippers didn't stabilize once they got rid of Donald Sterling, but like their inability to win in any game is still pretty evident that matters. Now, part of that is like, listen, you're in business with James Harden. That seems like a you problem. You're one of Adam Peters and Dan Quinn. They go to the NFC Championship game. Obviously, the NFC Championship game wasn't very close, but no one thought that that's crazy given that the talent discrepancy in that game was a mile wide. And now all signs point to them getting a new stadium. I think it was announced they are getting a new one. I don't know logistically the that area really at all. I've been there twice in my life, once for a game and once for Fourth of July actually with a college buddy of mine, Steve. It was actually a fun time. Got pretty annihilated. That would have been like 2010, probably 2010 and 2011 were the two times I've ever been there. Really cool place. Powerful place given the history. And I went to the stadium and it's an absolute dump. So that's a huge accomplishment getting out of there. But clearly getting the draft as well, which I think we've talked about on the mailbag, is a clear sign that the draft is going to these places that are not going to be in the Super Bowl rotation. Like Washington, D.C. is not going to be a place where the Super Bowl goes. Just like Detroit, just like Green Bay, cold weather cities are just not going to host it, which I don't really have a big issue with. I mean, it's a corporate event and less about just hitting every single city. So giving these cold weather cities the draft, which is in a much more desirable time, even though it still could be cold, as you saw in Green Bay, it was raining on Friday. But for the most part, the weather has really started to change for the better. And it's just crazy how some franchises can just seem cursed forever. Honestly, the Dolphins feel like that a little bit. It's like something's just off about that franchise. The Jags have a little bit of that vibe. In Washington, within 1 year of a sale, getting rid of Dan Snyder, hiring these guys, feel like a brand new team. Matt Stafford. It's funny, like I totally understand internally in an organization feeling gratitude and appreciation for a player taking a little pay cut. Whether that's, I remember like a decade ago, maybe a little less than that. Kevin Durant technically took a little bit less and enabled them to maneuver and make some extra money. But it was the difference between like 39 million and 36 million. And it really wasn't substantial. He wouldn't even notice it on his paycheck, but he got a lot of credit for it. And I get internally in the organization, like giving that guy his flowers and giving him a lot of credit. I never quite understand people on the outside, especially the media, like what a great thing to do. It's like, guys, what the fuck are we talking about? This is not going to change his life one iota, and it's actually going to enable him to win more, which is going to benefit him. And now looking back, that was the only time he was ever going to win because he leaves them, he's got no fucking chance. And so I totally get Sean McVay, who I've seen on some interviews say, listen, we feel a lot of appreciation for Matt Stafford, not only choosing to stay here, but taking less money than he could have got other places. And I get that from his position. But when I see today that his number comes out, he gets 2 years, basically 80 plus million dollars, and they guarantee him $40 million. And this year he will make $44 million. And it was clear he could have gone to the Giants or the Raiders, and they would have given him a lot more money than that. Now, by a lot, is that $120 million? Is that 2 years, $60 million a year? It's a number that's bigger than that. But like at a certain point, the whole point of life and working is the most valuable thing we all have is time, right? And time is not something that's unlimited. Now, we never know when that time is going to end, but the older you get, you realize to really value time with your family, time with your friends, time that you get off to do things that you want to do, the ability, depending on how well your career's going, to utilize that time for what you want to do and not someone else wants you to do. And I see Matt Stafford, and I looked just now that he has made in his career $364 million. $364 million. So if I was making a decision, especially at his point in time in his career, where he is simply at this point in time, like he's chasing, try to get in the Hall of Fame. He's chasing, try to like really have a legendary career this second 5, 6, 7 years, however long it goes in LA, and be kind of leave a different taste in everyone's mouth than the first, I would say 75% of it in Detroit, which wasn't all his fault. He was part of an awful organization, but he was paid a premium, and he became, and he will go down as one of the highest paid players in the history of the game. So when I see a guy making a decision based on, well, I'm with Sean McVay, one of the great coaches in the NFL. I'm with the Rams, one of the best teams in the NFL. I'm with this organization, which is clearly really well run. My GM knows what he's doing. My owner has a lot of money. I'm in an area that clearly my family likes living in. Like, I don't give you extra credit for just making a smart decision. Like, I hope at 37, 38 years old, you can see this. So I would imagine there are going to be articles like, what a great team player. It's like, yeah, if you want to go to the Giants and get your ass kicked. Like, I believe in John Spytek. Pete Carroll is one of the better coaches of my life. I think it is a huge uphill battle over these next couple years, which would have been the last couple of Matt Stafford still playing at a high level in that division. I mean, it's just, and that conference, it's really fucking hard. So like Matt Stafford made a move that people can make when they have unlimited amounts of money in their bank account. They can make decisions not based on money. I will never fault an individual who hasn't made an unlimited amount of money. Well, whether you're making 60 grand somewhere and someone offers you $150,000, you're like, I don't even want to take this job, but I can't turn down that type pay raise. It's like, yeah, no shit. Take the job. In a couple years, if you hate it, you will have banked so much more money than you had. Maybe then you can make a different decision. Money's all relative. But when you make $364 million, like, I'm sorry, money should not be the driving decision in your football situation. You know, no one's asking every quarterback to be Tom Brady and make way less than market value. But you get to a certain point, like Aaron Rodgers, he believed in what the Jets were selling. Now it turns out like they're the Jets, bro. You got Robert Saleh and Ulbricht's kid doing who knows what. But he's like, listen, I've made hundreds of millions of dollars. It is in my best interest at this point in time. I'll take a little bit less. Remember, he took a huge discount. He basically gave money back so they could buy other players and give themselves the best chance. Now, it didn't work out, but like, it's not that crazy of a move. People in business do it all the time. Hey, I'll take a little bit less. Hell, I talk to my wife about that all the time. We're both involved in situations like really getting paid on this. But from a big picture standpoint, does this make some sense? Does this actually benefit you? And like, you can't balance everything on dollars and cents, especially when you've made that much money. So listen, Matt Stafford made the right decision. He clearly took a little haircut given what he could have made at other places. But when it comes to football and when it comes to winning, it's a no-brainer decision to stay with the Rams. Did you know your credit card points and miles lose value while they collect dust? Imagine a credit card with rewards that can grow in value. Introducing the Gemini credit card. With the Gemini credit card, you can earn Bitcoin or one of over 50 other cryptos instantly with no annual fee. Every swipe at the store or gas pump earns you instant rewards deposited straight into your account. Plus, sign up now for $200 Bitcoin bonus to kickstart your rewards. Go to Gemini.com/card to learn more and start earning today. Terms apply. Again, visit Gemini.com/card now. Terms apply. The Gemini credit card is issued by WebBank. In order to qualify for the intro $200 crypto bonus, your application must be approved by June 30th, 2025, and spend $3,000 in your first 90 days. Terms apply. Some exclusions apply to instant rewards in which rewards are deposited when the transaction posts. This content is not investment advice, and trading crypto involves risk. For more details on rates, fees, and other Gemini credit card terms, see rates and fees. I kind of laugh that only in college football, like in the NFL, if a coach is going to get suspended, or definitely a player is going to get suspended, 99% of the time it's going to come from the league. Like, you're going to have to throw the hammer at us because, like, I'm not just going to suspend a play. He's going to have to do something egregious. And that's usually what happens, right? Goodell suspends people constantly. I mean, it's one of the defining attributes of, I would say, his tenure as commissioner. And I saw today that, remember, 2 years ago, Jim Harbaugh was suspended multiple times. Suspended early in the season, suspended late in the season. And I think one of those suspensions was from the University of Michigan. Well, now the University of Michigan, because of Connor Stallions, well, they're also dealing with this other situation where this dude was like cracking into people's phones and getting information based on whether they should recruit him or whatever. But that's a whole nother story. This is simply on Connor Stallions stealing signs, even though Sherrone Moore wasn't in charge. Someone's got to pay for it, and they try to get ahead of it based on the NCAA, who literally no one thinks has any power anymore. I don't know why anyone is worried about what the NCAA is doing. They've literally just tucked their tail between their legs and said, we're out of it all. Yet somehow they're kind of still involved, and some of these teams are a little leery. It's like they're living in the past. It's like they're living in like 2006. Like, guys, it's 2025. They could give you a suspension. You could say, kiss my ass. And then both cheeks, because I'm not listening to a word you're saying. But clearly Michigan, maybe it's the high academic standards, maybe it's that old school mentality, but they stir some fear, because if there wasn't any fear, they would not do this. But I did laugh that this year, and I didn't even know this is actually a pretty good game on paper, because a lot of people think that Oklahoma is probably one of, if not the most improved teams of this offseason. They had this sweet quarterback from Washington State, his offensive coordinator. They've had a good transfer portal. They got some good young players. They got a lot of wide receivers coming back. Obviously, Michigan as well. Quarterback situation was a joke. They get Larry Ellison and Portnoy and all these guys to give Underwood like $15 million. You know, the aspirations of these two programs are going to be to compete for a playoff spot. And Sherrone Moore played at Oklahoma for Bob Stoops. Well, they play each other week 2. So they're like, we're going to suspend you for 2 games. But we're not going to take away your opportunity to coach against your alma mater, which I would imagine is a pretty incredible experience if you're Sherrone Moore. We're going to suspend you weeks 3 and 4 against some random, I think it's New Mexico and Nebraska. Cool? Cool. What? What are we? Listen, I think this whole thing is stupid. I think even having to suspend them to try to pretend like to the NCAA they still matter and we still take it seriously is all such like dumb stuff happening for optics. But this is pretty laughable. If you are going to do something to just randomly suspend them week 3 and 4 is one of the most insane, most college athletic things you will ever see in your entire life. So just made me laugh. A couple other quick things. I've seen a couple GMs talk about this. I saw Spytech talk about this on an offensive lineman that they drafted, I think from Texas Tech, Caleb Rogers. And I saw Vrabel and the Patriots. I don't know if it was Vrabel specifically. It could have been Elliott Wolf, or it could have just been a article written about the Patriots. One thing that they loved about Kyle Williams, the wide receiver from Wazoo that they drafted, were that those guys have the opportunity, just like all these kids. And listen, by and large, I think not playing in a bowl game, if you're a top, I could pull like an arbitrary number, top 100 pick, but like feel pretty confident that you're going to be a first or definitely even a second day pick, like a second or third rounder. I got no issue. If it's not a playoff game, these bowl games are pretty meaningless. You get some of these other teams playing some young guys trying to really impress coaches. It is not worth the injury risk of having someone snap your leg or just a natural football injury. All of a sudden, you go from being the 40th pick in the draft to now being a six rounder because you got a torn labrum. So I am completely, from a business standpoint, behind any kid that goes, you know what, the Samsung Rainbow Sandal Bowl, I'm out. I'm not playing. No issue. But I also understand like some of these kids that are like, listen, this is my last time playing in college. My teammates that are still playing, it means a lot to me. I just like playing the game of football. Uh, Novel concept, given that I'm pretty good at it, and I want to play in this game. And it clearly means something to some of these GMs and coaches when guys do that. Now, I've talked about this once you meet a player, right? Like I've seen enough clips on Will Campbell. I can't imagine once you start spending time around him, he's pretty easy to like, pretty easy to go. That's the type guy we want in our building. I've seen some clips of Riley Leonard, the quarterback that the Colts drafted. You get around certain people, whether they are a top 10 talent or whether they are a fifth, sixth, seventh round talent, you leave that room going, I want that guy in my building. I want that guy on my team. And I think sometimes and I was always taught, before you do the character write up, that means basically before you go around and get the information on the kid, right? So you get to the pro liaison, you talk to his coordinator, you talk to those guys, and they give you the information, good or bad. That can jade the way you view a guy. Because if you get glowing information, you're going to root for that guy when you watch him play on tape. Vice versa. You get negative information that he's an awful person or even just stuff like, yeah, not the hardest worker. That can put you down the wrong direction. And you got to be very, very careful doing that. And I just wonder, like, I get it. And I would like that. Who wouldn't if I ran a team? It's like football means everything to this guy. I want guys on my team where football means everything to. Typically, the best teams have the most talented players that really, really care about football. I mean, the Patriots built a 20-year dynasty off that. The Chiefs have maintained a really high level post Tyreek Hill the last couple years with just kind of grinders. They don't have the sexiest team, but they got some bad, you know what, dudes because football's a really big deal in that building. And you're not allowed to miss practice there. That's why everyone loves Georgia. What I've been told by a couple scouting buddies is like, you don't really miss practice at Georgia. Because if you do, guess what happens? The five-star junior, sophomore, freshman takes your spot. And if you miss a couple practices, all of a sudden you miss a game, you might never get that spot back because that next guy coming up is Jalen Carter, is Brock Bowers, is Michael Williams, is Jalen Carter, I said his name twice, but you get my point. Malachi Starks. Insert any stud player that has been drafted really high. Those are the backups. Still, even in a day and age where it's not quite as deep as it once was because of NIL and the transfer portal, they're two deep, still better than every two deep. Same thing at Ohio State. Caleb Downs has to take practice really seriously, even though he's the best player on the team. Because there's a decent chance, if not last year, this year, they will recruit another Caleb Downs. That's what they do. And that maintains the high level of play. So I get liking that mindset. It's going to be fascinating to watch and just kind of keep track if that is something that actually impacts these guys having long careers. Because, listen, at the highest level, like you either got the goods or you don't. And so if they have the talent and they have that mindset, then yeah, I would bet on these kids. One thing I've found pretty interesting, I'm a sucker for these YouTubes. The Colts have been doing this for years. The Eagles put out a really good one. I'm sure a lot of these teams do it, where they basically give like a edited 15, 20, 25 YouTube version of the draft room. And one thing's clear, like when you watch the Colts one, they love Tyler Warren. That if you told me they were drafting fifth instead of 14th, they might have drafted Tyler Warren there. After the 49ers, the first round, Kyle Shanahan said that when I woke up on Thursday morning, Michael Williams was the guy I wanted. So before you even watch the draft play out, you had targeted, we want Tyler Warren. We want Michael Williams. Howie Roseman in this clip on YouTube had been trying desperately for like 15 picks. And obviously, he's the last guy drafting in the first round to trade up, by all accounts, to get Jahad Campbell the entire time, who most consider one of the top 7, 8, 10 best players in this draft. Just some medical question marks about multiple body parts. But the Eagles, Dr. DeLuca, good doctor, signed off, so he's going to be okay. I started thinking because I watched this clip on Instagram from Eric DaCosta. I think this is an old clip, but he basically said that he was telling a story back in like 2002 that they had fallen in love with. I'm trying to think who the player was. I had it up and I didn't write it down. Napoleon Harris. Napoleon Harris was a linebacker from Northwestern, which sounds kind of crazy, but back in the late 90s, early 2000s, Northwestern was a really good football program. I mean, obviously, they've had years over Pat Fitzgerald over the last 20 years, but they were producing some pretty high end NFL talent. And he's like, we were just obsessed with him. We really, really wanted to draft him. And by all accounts, it looked like he was going to fall right into our laps. And they were drafting pick 24. And then at pick 23, Al Davis drafts Napoleon Harris. And he's like, you could have heard a pin drop in our room. We were devastated. And we ended up drafting kind of a smaller, honestly, lower rated guy in our room, safety from Miami named Ed Reed. And his point to this story was no one really knows. If we knew, we never would have been devastated. Hell, Ed Reed would have gone like in the top 5 of that draft. He never would have been there. So this entire game of getting locked in on a player, I think can be pretty risky. And, ultimately you take who you feel is the best player. And I totally understand if you're drafting 1, 2, or 3, uh, knowing when the draft starts, this is exactly who we want. But you hear a lot of these GMs say, hey, we just stack our board and whoever falls to us, falls to us. And listen, Howie Roseman at this point in time is on a legendary run of a couple years. If you want to take a star linebacker from Alabama, and it turns out he got denied everywhere, he basically had to give up nothing to go from 32 to 31. But I do wonder if some of these teams, when the draft starts, like the Indianapolis Colts, like we got to have Tyler Warren. If he falls to us, 100% the pick. If that's the right mindset to take, and listen, it might work and it might not. But listen to that Eric DaCosta story. It just really crystallizes. And I love the draft as much as anybody. I watch college football from sun up till well after sundown on Saturdays for months on end during the fall. I love college football. The NFL essentially bought my house, but I value college football very, very closely. Not quite to the NFL because I know its importance to what I do, but I love everything about it. We have a long history of knowing exactly what Eric DaCosta is saying. No one has any fucking clue. And it's so easy to play Monday morning quarterback a couple years after, like, oh, no, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, they stink. That's not what everyone was saying. I respect Chris Sims. I think he's actually pretty good when it comes to talking about quarterbacks. He was like, this guy's Aaron Rodgers. Look at that arm strength. It's like, yeah, he's playing the Sisters of the Poor. Look at their schedule. But you just watch them, especially in these pro day settings. And the thing about the draft, which is always really scary, is, and listen, Tyler Warren and Michael Williams and Jahad Campbell, I mean, these guys played for the best of the best, and all 3 of them might become Pro Bowlers. And they might not even be great examples of what I'm even saying because ultimately none of these teams really maneuvered. 49ers stayed, the Colts stayed, and I'm sure a lot of these other teams. I think the best example of this would be Steve Jobs in Jacksonville, James Gladstone, who traded up and traded a future 1 for a guy that doesn't have a defined position. And that sounds like a negative. Obviously, it's because he's really good at 2 positions. But that's a complicated situation in the NFL. And I think no matter how much you love a guy, there just is no guarantee. And I think sometimes getting aggressive on draft night, especially when you're trading future first round picks, has proven to be the wrong decision.